Hello viewers, welcome to World News. My name is Manny. Today I'm going to discuss about what total American people are facing, the case of what about their food habit and total lifestyle and consequent illness accordingly. It is not no secret that poor, uninsured, obese, heavy drinkers and smokers of the world tend to have the most health problems. However, cultural factors may be as important as these well-known health risks. According to a study that appeared last year in the Journal of American Medical Association, simply living in America as may be as risky as the diet of duff nuts and beer, researchers suggest. In fact, study author epidemiologist Sir Michael Marmot, PhD of University College London Medical School, and his colleagues found that despite the fact that Americans spend 2.5 times more on healthcare, we are far sicker than the British in rates of diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, heart attack, stroke, lung disease, and cancer. Unsurprisingly, the team also found that Americans are less healthy the farther down they are on the socioeconomic ladder. However, in absolute terms, the richest, healthiest Americans are as sick as the poorest Brits, Marmot says. Why are rich people in America too? He asks. That is the real puzzle. Just as intriguingly, the usual suspects don't fully explain these differences, accounting for less than half of them. The team found, for instance, the British drink a little more alcohol than we do, and though Americans are more obese on average, the difference between American and British body mass indices does not account for all the difference in chronic illness. Marmot believes the psychic smoke that making Americans sick could be composed of two factors. One is that Americans' long work hours leave us more stressed and less healthy. The other is that Americans may feel friendless and isolated due to social stressors created by our country's widening income gap. In turn, that the societal divisiveness may be bad for our health, not just poor people's health, but everyone's, he speculates. Currently, Marmot can only guess why Americans are less healthy than physical measures suggest they should be. But psychologists have identified some intriguing possibilities. In the realm of work stress, Marmot is right. We got work long hours than people from other countries, observed cognitive psychologist Alan Hedge, PhD professor in Cornell University's Department of Design and Environmental Analysis. Internal labor organization statistics show for people that we are more than twice as likely as Europeans to work 50 hours in a week or more. Relatedly, downsizing and outsourcing have led to longer hours and more job insecurity for many Americans, and poorer Americans often work two jobs, a trend that is nearly unheard of in Britain, Hegde notes. As a possible consequence of such factors, many Americans are obesity with money, and no matter how much or little they make, they observe. We are almost like nomadic society on this treadmill, hoping that we will either strike it rich with the lottery or that if we work hard enough, somehow we will become Google millionaires, he comments. The way America deals with social building blocks such as healthcare, education, and pensions compounds the problem. Hector believes in England, for example, university education costs $3,000 a year, and everyone has access to adequate health insurance. British citizens must retire at age of 65, with many companies encouraging earlier retirement, and they receive both government and employer pension. And it is not linked to stock market performance. You 401k doesn't evaporate because of the dirty dealings of Enron, he says. By contrast, many Americans angst over how they can possibly make enough to cover insurance and other basics while saving enough for retirement in 2005. For instance, the average cost of a year at private American college university was $21,235, with some private institution costing double that amount, statistics show. Isolation nation. American facing job insecurity and financial instability may lack sufficient social support to help them through tough times. Other observers surveys say, while finding on our degree of isolation are mixed. A study in June 2006 American Sociological Review by University of Arizona sociologist Miller Person and PhD and colleagues for instance report that Americans' network of confidence dropped from about 3 to 2 people between 1985 and 2005. Meanwhile, a 2001 study by York University psychologist Amy Rock's PhD in social behavior and personality found that North Americans scored higher than their Spanish counterparts on 5 factors related to the experience of loneliness, including feelings of social inadequacy and alienation, interpersonal isolation, and self-alienation. Indeed, Americans with 2 jobs, for example, may not have the time to meet up with friends, says Hegde. Our tendency to pick up and move for new jobs leaves friends and family behind could also be a factor. Undergirded by culture that favors the individual over the group, adds psychologist, social observer, and best-selling author Mary Pfeiffer, PhD, whose most recent book in Writing to Change the World. We no longer live in a culture where we know most of the people we encounter, she says. Indeed, the British and other Europeans place far more emphasis on social bonding than we do, Edgar says, take the British pub. The fact that you have a local place where neighbors to go every night just to communicate, that seems to be completely different from the American approach where people vanish into their house at night and lock themselves in. He says, in fact, many studies shows that compared with Americans, Europeans would rather forego more income for more leisure time. Mammoth adds, it's possible such differences could affect a nation's health. Maybe, says Sheldon Cohen, PhD professor of psychology at Carnegie Mellon University in 2005, the study in health psychology. For example, Cohen and colleagues found that five-year college students with smaller social networks and a greater reported loneliness had a poorer immune response to flu vaccine than other students. In related to findings, people with the greatest number of social roles and domains of social connections are less likely to smoke and drink in the face of social pressure than those with less diverse networks, according to another forthcoming study by Cohen's team, also to appear in the health psychology. We think the high integration people may in fact be responding to social norms, Cohen says, but to the larger norms of their networks as a whole to stay healthy and take care of yourself so you can take care of other people. By contrast, now those low in social integration may use smoking and drinking as a way of lubricating social interactions, he notes. Passing the bucks. Parents, both rich and poor, may be bequeathing this culture of stress to their children, adds Martin County, Caliph psychologist Madeline Levenue, PhD, author of The Price of Privilege, How Parental Pressure and Material Advance are Creating a Generation of Disconnected and Unhappy Kids. Levine wrote her book after observing more and more well-off young people entering her office with depression, anxiety, loneliness, and self-destructive behavior such as cutting, eating disorder, and substance abuse. The epidemic, she thinks, result from messages from parents and teachers that tell children to excel and seek material success, even at the expense of healthy psychological development, and phenomenal she calls the culture of affluence. This trend isn't limited to wealthy families, she adds, but to any parents who tend to value material goods over relationships and competition over corporations. To begin to break up this consumeric malaise that's poisoning Americans and their children, Levin teaches parents first to spend substantive and non-stressful time with their kids, and then to help them to build relationships and become giving members of society. Views she is sharing with and sell out crowds around the country. So it shows that a child's first community is their home. Levin says, if they grow up believing they have a contribution to make, they will have an easier time raising a family and being part of a community. I tell parents that if at the end of the day your kid doesn't have coping skill, it doesn't matter where he get into school. Thank you.